Hello, everybody, and welcome into another Monday edition of the Hockey Writers Podcast here on YouTube. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, however, thank you again for your continued support listening to the podcast. But we're on YouTube on Mondays now, and I'm your host, Matthew Zator. As always, joined in by my regular co-host, Kyle Knopp. How are you doing, Kyle, on this holiday Monday in the States? I know I had my holiday last week, but how's it going over there?
Yeah, it's a beautiful Memorial Day this morning. Happy to be here talking playoff hockey in Game 7 with you tonight. What better way to celebrate the holiday than, some burgers and dogs on the grill and some Game 7 hockey at night. So looking forward to it, Matt.
Well, we have only one Game 7 this round 2. I mean, we had what, 5 in the first round?
Yep.
Only one this time. It could have been less if these teams could win on the road. It just seems like they can't. Before we get to talking about that, we'll do our normal segment here. It's been one of our favorites on the grind line. It started about one good, one bad from the past week, and doesn't have to be playoffs. It can be anything in the hockey world. I'll start with mine. This is in Canucks land. Linus Karlsson, who's pretty big. Well, he was traded for Jonathan Dahlen, who's on the San Jose Sharks now. Way back when, it's been a few years now, but he's been playing in Sweden and broke Elias Pettersson's record, rookie record on SHL Rookie of the Year, big numbers over there. And the Canucks finally signed him. So he's coming over this coming season to play and hopefully contribute to the Canucks lineup. He'll probably be in the minors to start, but I'm excited to see him. I'm sure a lot of fans are excited to see what he can do in the Canucks lineup, especially with all their cap issues and uncertainty going. There's an ELC that can come in and potentially contribute on, bottom 6 power play, but he's really impressive in Sweden, as most Canucks fans know, if you're following the team. But this is a rookie that's going to be really exciting to watch, and he's 23. I mean, he's not a young rookie, but Kirill Kaprizov came over from KHL and he lit it up. I'm not going to say he's going to light it up like him. It'd be great if he could, but
that's quite the bold prediction on a Monday there, Matt.
I'm not going to say he's going to be a 100-point guy, but I could see him going 15, 20 goals, contribute on a, potentially he could be on the top 6. That's maybe big expectations, but he's been impressive. So that's my good for the past week because he just signed. And before we get to the bad, Kyle, what's your good for this past week?
Yeah, so my good for this past week is Valtteri Filppula becoming the 30th member of the Triple Gold Club. A Olympic gold medal win in February with Team Finland, a World Championship win, gold medal last night or yesterday, Sunday, I should say, depending on when you're listening to this episode, Sunday against Team Canada, and then a Stanley Cup championship in 2008 with the Detroit Red Wings. So 30th member and first Finn to join that club. So, that's pretty impressive, and hats off to Filppula for that.
Yeah, that's, triple gold. That's pretty good. I mean, not a lot of guys get that. And so he joins a rare club. There's a lot of, that's a really good thing. And he was a really solid contributor for the Red Wings for many years. And what did he play for Tampa and then he came back to Detroit to end his career, right?
Yeah, I think he was with the Flames for a little bit too, right?
Oh, yes. I believe so too. Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, he was a little bit of a journeyman at the end of his career, but he was a big part of that middle 6 for their 2008 win, and was a pretty big contributor for being a young guy at the time. And now he's captain of Team Finland. He played overseas this year after finally leaving the NHL and signing over there, and which is, wouldn't have happened if he stayed in the NHL. They wouldn't have gone to the Olympics this year.
That's right.
We wouldn't be talking about this. So, it's a pretty big accomplishment. Yeah, they didn't start the World Championship playoff round until, I believe, like 92, 93, around that time. So you have a lot of guys, that played in the 70s and 80s and before that missed out on this opportunity to join this club, which I think is why it's a little more exclusive. But the fact that only 30 members have done it, 29 players and 1 coach, it's still very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, like I say, that not a lot of guys do. They're not, it's a pretty exclusive club for a lot of guys. So congrats to him. Congrats to Finland for another gold medal. It seems like they just keep getting there, winning a lot this year. So and beat Team Canada, who put up a fight. That was in overtime, I believe that game was. So that's an impressive performance. Juho Lammikko, who played for the Canucks, only Canuck over there, in that final round. Ekman Larsson got hurt and fractured. I believe he's fractured his foot, so he's going to be out for a while. But thankfully, it's the off season, so he should be back and healthy for the Canucks regular season. So, congrats to Lammikko, Filppula, and Team Finland for winning another gold medal. Plucky bunch. The guys, they just seem to do it. So you never should count them out whenever they're in these competitions.
Not right now either. And their junior team has been strong too. So they have a lot of good young talent in the pipeline. So they're gonna be a team to contend with over the next few years.
Yeah, and their next chance is World Juniors. So, I think Hlinka Cup is.
Yep. That's
the Hlinka and then the World Juniors.
U17s and then
Yeah, so that's gonna be some fun hockey in August when we don't have usual playoffs will be over. We'll still be able to watch some hockey, so that's gonna be exciting.
Gives us something to talk about on Mondays, which is always good.
Yeah, we're talking some World Juniors, so that's fun. Let's move on to my bad. I guess I got to put my bad in here too. My bad is something this is on Twitter. I had a conversation. It was a back and forth. I mean, it's good back and forth on Twitter, but this is something I'm really passionate about, and this is the continued lack of belief that undersized players can make it in the NHL. I had a back and forth with the former writer of ours, Jack Dawkins. We had great back and forth, so I'm nothing against him. I mean, he was it was a great debate, but this was on a guy, Lane Hudson, who is a defenseman that's up for this 2022 draft. Very undersized defenseman, but very dynamic, smart, mobile, great skater, but he's small. I mean, he's undersized, but he's got the smarts and stuff. And I believe, this is all, everyone believes that. Sometimes, like he argued that, for every Jared Spurgeon, there's a guy that doesn't make it. So, I get it. But when you believe that someone, is, undersized guys, they surprise a lot. And I couldn't convince him. Couldn't convince him is the end of the story. But that's my bad, is the continued, no belief in undersized players. And this is not just him. There's quite a few teams that still do this. Undersized guys go way lower than they should in the draft. And it's still a stigma, and I hate it because, undersized guys, there's so many in the NHL that have beaten the odds, DeBrincat, Spurgeon, Point, Point, and Goudreau. There's so many that have done it. So why not believe in these guys right away? They don't make it. They don't make it. There's big 6'6" guys that don't make it. So it's that's still a bad, and that's just a conversation I had on Twitter last night. So it's still fresh in my mind. So that's my bad for this past week.
To go in that same vein, Matt, I would think that after people discounted Marty St. Louis during his career and, the Hall of Fame numbers that he put up, and then still to have that stigma, especially as the NHL has evolved away from that clutch and grab and that stymied through the neutral zone, whereas now it's a lot more open and suits players that are smaller and skilled better. And, you have those guys like Johnny Gaudreau, who's going to get a huge payday this year, and deservedly so. And another small guy. So I absolutely agree. I think that mindset needs to shift very soon, because as we continue to see every year, small guys tend to get it done in the playoffs. So so I won't take up too much more time with this, but my bad for this week is going to be the lack of game sevens. We only have one tonight. After going 62.5% of first round games and being the second most game sevens in one series in NHL playoff history, we only get one more in the next round. And granted, the season that set the most was 6 in the first round. Back, I think it was 92. There were no more game 7s after that. So after, the record is 7 in a series or in a playoff season, I should say. So we are 1 away from tying that record. So if one of the next 3, Eastern Conference, Western Conference, or Stanley Cup final go, we'll be tied with the record. And if at least 2 of those go, they'll be setting a new record this year. But I think everyone thought the Battle of Alberta, everyone thought the Battle of Florida would at least go 6 or 7, and neither of those delivered. So that's my bad, and that's just me being a selfish hockey fan and wanting more playoff hockey. But hey, it's been great hockey for what we have had.
Well, yeah, the thing is, it's like there's so many. We were spoiled. We were spoiled in the first round with those 5 game 7s.
Yeah, we were.
I don't know if we expected that. I kind of, in my predictions, I was predicting 6 or 7 for most of these series again.
Oh yeah.
Of course, it didn't happen. I mean, definitely could have. The Flames and Oilers should have gone way longer. I think if all the players would have stepped to what they were doing in the regular season, you definitely would be. But it happens, and not everything goes game 7. That's why the record was standing for so long of how many have been. So it doesn't usually happen, that many of them. So let's move on to our playoff discussion here and start with the Rangers and Hurricanes, which alluded to at the beginning of the show here. This series has gone back and forth. Again, a home team series that no one has won on the road. This is ridiculous. The first series is the same thing, Carolina and Boston. No one could win on the road. Yeah. And it ended up being no one could win on the road. This one could end up that way too. If the Hurricanes can pull it out of the fire, just like they did in that Boston series, they'll do it again. But the thing is, this is not a recipe for success. I mean, so what do you think the Rangers need to do to break their road woes and break that Hurricanes long winning streak at home? They haven't lost in the playoffs yet.
The biggest thing that the Rangers need to do tonight is take the crowd out of the game. PNC Arena is going to be rocking. Like you said, the Hurricanes are undefeated at home. They've been untouchable at home. Yeah. I don't have the stats up in front of me, but they have just been dominating opponents in Raleigh, and then have been playing 180 away from North Carolina. So the Rangers need to come in. They need to set the tone early. They need to have a first period just like they did in game 6 and get that crowd out of it early. A goal or 2 early would be huge to do that. But just keeping the pressure on Ronta and the Canes in their zone will be a great way for them to set the tone. Yeah. Another thing is they have to make sure they don't then revert back to their way of playing lackadaisical, kind of like they did in the second and third period of that game 6. To me, if that would have been a 2-1, 3-1 game going in, to that second half of that game, I think the Carolina Hurricanes pull that out. I think the 4-1 was a little bit too much for them to overcome. They did bring it back to 4-2, but if it had been 1 fewer goal, I think Carolina overcomes that because New York just kind of shut down, and they played a really, really poor game in the second, at least middle third of that game. They did kind of tighten up at the end, but so I think the Rangers really need to take that crowd out, take that energy out, and make that kind of a dull place to play tonight, because if that crowd gets going, the Carolina Hurricanes are going to feed off of that.
Well, that's what been the case in the, at MSG too. Like their crowd seems to feed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, it seems like both teams, the home ice advantage is huge. Yeah. So the Hurricanes have it until they meet the Colorado Avalanche. It's the only team that they would not have home ice advantage with. Yeah. So they could end up riding this until the Stanley Cup final. If Oilers make it, they could completely run it and not win a road game in the whole playoffs.
Oh my gosh.
Which would be unprecedented. So,
but that would help us get our record of game 7s in a playoff season. So
it's insane. But the thing is, it's like I say, it's not sustainable. Like you're going to run into a hot goaltender, which they could tonight against Shesterkin, who has been really good in this series. End up having one game where he just shuts the door like Vasilevsky does almost every time. You can't rely on the fact that, we're so good at home, we'll just never lose. Well, that's not It's not good. It's not always a good.
I'm glad you brought up Shesterkin because we've been waiting for him to really steal a game and steal a series, and this is his opportunity. This is his coming out party tonight. You know, everyone wants to talk about how he had a Vezina caliber season. If he wants to prove that he's that Vezina type goalie in the playoffs, like the Vasilevsky, and can be that guy that can have the team thrown on his back and lead them to the next round, this is the game that he has to play. You know, he has to be Vasilevsky-esque and really play lights out tonight. And I think that's going to be another big key for the Rangers too. And
also Antti-Ranta for the Hurricanes, because he wasn't that good in the last game. And
no, he let in a couple soft ones, and I don't think you bring in Freddie Anderson. Who did that in Game 7? Was that Pittsburgh? When they brought in Jari after the injury, and that didn't work well against the Rangers. But I think it's Ranta's net. And he needs to play well too. He's got to shake those goals off. He had a couple that just kind of squeaked through him. But he's got to make those saves early in the game, because if he lets one in like that, or two in that first period, I mean, that's what the Rangers need. And that would really kind of deflate the Hurricane sails.
So let's do a prediction before we move on to talking about the Oilers Avs. Who's going to win this? And predict a series winning goal. We'll see how close we both are in this one.
I wanted to be vague about this and say it's going to go to overtime and the captain's going to get it and just leave it at that, because I think both teams' captains really need to step up tonight. I think I'm going to go off script here. And I think that, the Hurricanes need to get punched in the face. They can't keep going through the playoffs without winning a game on the road. And I think this is where Shesterkin kind of wakes up and says, yes, I can be that guy. So I'll say a 1-0 win, Shesterkin being the MVP, and let's go Kreider with the game winner, because he needs something to get going.
Good stuff. So I'm gonna go the Rangers side too. I don't think this Hurricanes thing is gonna keep up. It's not sustainable. You can't be doing this every time. It looks like the Rangers have kind of figured things out. If Shesterkin and these last few games have shown it, even the game they lost, at home again, on the road before, if Shesterkin was really good.
Yeah, that was that triple overtime game in against Pittsburgh, right? In that game 1.
Yeah. So I mean, he can do it. He can do it. So you can't just hope that he's not going to be good. No, I think this is where their luck runs out. Hot streak ends. Sorry, Dean. And I'm going to go with Tyler Mott scoring the game winner.
Ooh, I like that.
He's one of my favorites in Vancouver here. I hope that he just, plays in the Rangers for a bit, comes back to Vancouver in the offseason, because he's really been missed. They called him a glue guy, and he's definitely a glue guy. So I'm going to go, I'm going to say the final score is going to be 2-1, and Mott will score the game winner. And I'll say that's going to overtime. And Mott will be scoring the winner in overtime. So we'll see.
I like. We'll come back next Monday and be like, we were way wrong.
We were totally off. It was like
16-0 Hurricanes.
So we'll find out what happens there. I haven't been writing any predictions yet, so it's hard to predict these playoffs to pick game winners, because Mott's usually, he's not a normal guy who would score. So you never know. It's going to end up being a defenseman scored a game, game or something. Yeah. It's going to be another one of those Keandre Miller with the OT winner, Yeah. Ryan Reeves. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's going to be fun. This series hasn't been the most exciting to watch, in my opinion, but hopefully this one is the exciting one to watch, because game 7s are usually exciting. So because both teams have to come to play or you're gone. So we'll see. Let's move on to the much anticipated Western Conference Final. Edmonton Oilers, Colorado Avalanche, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Cale Makar, Leon Draisaitl. Just list all these guys you're going to be watching in this series. It's going to be fun. So let's ask this question though. Connor McDavid has been on it insane run of points. He's in the realm of Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, these top end guys that you wouldn't think would ever get touched in these playoff records. And McDavid is pacing them or outpacing them at times here. Do the Avs shut him down? Do you think they can shut the great Connor McDavid, who's been otherworldly in these playoffs?
I think they have the ability to shut them down. The Colorado Avalanche probably have one of the best defensive cores that are left, in the playoffs, besides maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning with Hedman and McDonough. I mean, anytime you have, two future Hall of Famers, it's going to be hard to, argue with that. But I think that the Avs defensive core is good enough to skate with McDavid. Cale Makar is a great and fantastic skater. He's fast. And they don't have a whole lot of guys that are liabilities on their defensive blue line that can get burned as much as, some of the other teams have. So I think they have the ability to shut them down. However, I think McDavid's going to stay hot. The thing is, in the past, his biggest knock on him in the playoffs was he was never able to get going. Now we've seen him not only get going, but just start absolutely sprinting through these playoffs and collecting points like Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, it's just insane. And so I don't think there's any way that you're going to slow him down. He's going to get those points. What the Avs need to focus on is that secondary scoring. They need to shut down Evander Kane. They need to shut down Leon Draisaitl. They need to shut down, Hyman. Hyman's been on fire too. If they can shut down those three guys or at least limit their production, then McDavid's going to have to do everything himself, and he'll be forced to score goals as opposed to set up assists. And where McDavid strives is when he can dictate the play, but then dish it off in, at the end for someone else to finish. And if you force him to skate through everyone and then make, have to be the one shooting as well, it allows your goaltender to focus on him a little bit more, as opposed to thinking there might be a backdoor pass or a drop pass or something fancy coming up. So I think, I believe McDavid will continue to score. I don't think it's going to be quite at the pace we've seen, because the Avalanche are going to do a much better job of shutting down his support players.
That's a good point. The thing is, and these are guys like these superstars, you can hope to limit them. That is it.
Yeah.
You're not going to shut them down, because a lot of these guys, even if he's not scoring, like McDavid didn't score in almost the whole game until the overtime, at least. And he was still getting chances. Yeah. And, and he got the overtime winner. And admittedly, he come out after the game. He's like, I was horrible in that game. Yeah. And I'm like, it didn't look like it. He
drove the play. Yeah.
Like,
I think I saw a stat the other day about zone entries and like percentages of zone entries. And I think it was Johnny Gaudreau, who's number one at like 76% with 30 some out of 40 some zone entries. And then like number 3 or 4 was Connor McDavid at like 72%, but it was like 76 out of 108 or something ridiculous like that. Like he had 3 times as many zone entries as the next closest person. And he still had a 0.75% of being successful at his zone entries, which is insane. So it just shows you how much he drives the play. Yeah. And so if he can continue to do that, Colorado's going to have trouble. So I apologize for cutting you off there, but they're going to have trouble. It depends on how much they can limit him.
Well, and that's going to be the challenge. And the thing is, though, McDavid's not the only threat. Like we saw, Draisaitl, Hyman, Kane, they've all been ridiculous in this, in the playoffs so far. And you look at guys like even Evan Bouchard has been really good on defense. And the app, Darnell Nurse is not at 100%. Other guys are stepping up. Cece, I believe, scored a goal in the last. So, I mean, you got guys that are stepping up. Puljujarvi scored in the last game. Nugent Hopkins got a couple of goals.
Pair.
So, I mean, and that's the point. And that's the case. And a lot of the time when teams are successful in the playoffs, it's not just the big guys scoring. It's these secondary guys, even third, fourth liners that are big difference. Look at Tampa Bay, look at Barclay Goodrow, Blake Coleman, guys like that. So it's always something that's going to be key in these playoffs is that secondary scoring, like you mentioned, right? So, and that's on the Avs side too. You're not going to, McKinnon will get his chances. He'll get his goals. It's the JT Compers. It's the Nazem Kadris, those guys. are going to make the biggest difference in the result. So before we move on, what would you say is that there's so many storylines in this series? It's ridiculous. We had almost a 40-minute preview show yesterday, which is out on YouTube.
Go watch it. I watched it. It's such a good one. Yeah.
It's really extensive. Jim Parsons, who covers the Oilers, and Kerry Collins covers the Avs. Great discussion we had in the preview. So definitely check that out on the YouTube channel as well. But what would you say is the biggest storyline in this one? Of all of them that are, the goaltending, Mike Smith versus Darcy Kemper, all these different ones. What do you think is the biggest one in your mind that you'll be watching for in this series?
There are so many, Matt. If you haven't, please go pause this, go watch that show, come back. Jim does a great job. He has a whole list of multiple different matchups to discuss. And I think you've already talked on both of them. You talked on one. We kind of talked on one extensively in the just a bit ago, and that's the depth scoring. I think that JT Compher and Darren Helm versus the Nazem Kadri and Kadri's on but the secondary, the Yamamoto and McLeod. Actually, I think McLeod's is evolving as being a great young, talented little player, and so I think the biggest thing is going to be the bottom six. And then you just mentioned it, Mike Smith versus Darcy Kemper. I think that's going to be the biggest one to watch. Are we going to get the Mike Smith that gives up the 132-foot goal, that gives up the softies, that can't keep momentum swinging in Edmonton's favor after a big goal for? He gives up a really quick goal against? Or are we going to get the Mike Smith that looked pretty shut down against Calgary's top trio? So I it's going to be very interesting, and I think that's going to be the biggest storyline. And then again with Kemper, the Colorado Avalanche passed on Grubauer and brought him in from Arizona to be this guy to lead him to the Stanley Cup final. And so now here he is on the stage in which they set for him, and he has to come and be their best player this series. So that's probably going to be my biggest storyline is Mike Smith versus Darcy Kemper.
Well, like we mentioned on the preview, is that both these goalies are ridiculous against each other's team, the other team. So it's like their records are insane. I think only 3 regulation losses between the two of them against the Oilers, against the Avs. So it may be a low scoring series if these goaltenders continue that run. So we'll have to wait and see on all this. So it's gonna be fun.
It would be very interesting to see this become a 1-0, 2-1 type series because of all the scoring that Draisaitl and McDavid have just had free access to, and then all the run and gun that you see Colorado take part in. I think that's a big storyline too. Who do you think this favors if it's a lower scoring game?
That's right. So we'll find out starting tomorrow, and that's when the game is. Game 1 goes pretty quickly. So have fun. It's going to be fun to watch, and so we'll leave it at that. Let's move on to a non-playoff storyline that happened yesterday. Jason Spezza, who played the last 2 seasons with the Maple Leafs, or 3. He's been on there for a bit.
Yeah, it might be 3 now. It's 2 or 3. Yeah,
2 or 3. So he played the last few seasons with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He announced his retirement yesterday, and Maple Leafs Lounge when talked about him. So again, check out that show. They talked about him quite a bit. But I want to ask this question, though. Are you surprised that he retired 5 points away from 1,000 points? You'd think that they'd want to, play next season and, hit that milestone and then retire. Are you surprised he retired? Didn't just sign another 1-year deal? Because he looked pretty good in the playoffs. It didn't look like he was slowing down. 5 points away from 1,000. What do you think?
Yeah, I was very surprised. I think he figured out it was time, that his body just needed to be done and that he couldn't go forward anymore. And, good for him for realizing that and stepping away while he still has his health and still has his, motor skills and doesn't come back and end up getting hurt, because that's a big risk when you're coming back for another season, especially when you're 38 years old. Your knees could give out, your hips could give out. You take a bad concussion. You never know. It's just, it really is a young man's game now. And as you get up at that age, your body really takes a lot of wear and tear. I am extremely surprised though, in the last 3 seasons with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sorry, I just had to check. Last 3 seasons with the Maple Leafs, he scored 25 points, 30 points, and 25 points. Yeah. And those are solid numbers for Spezza, who is playing on the bottom 6. So it's not like he's like the 5 points were like, am I going to get it in a full season? Because he's going to get 5 points. Like there's just no way Jason Spezza doesn't get 5 points. So that is surprising to me, especially as someone that is as big as a competitor as he is, that he wouldn't want to take a team-friendly 1-year deal to come back and at least try for one more shot at the Stanley Cup, because that core is coming back in Toronto, and to get those 1,000 points. So that to me lends to believe that there's something else in his health going on, that he just felt like he wasn't going to be able to produce or contribute. So I am very surprised about that, but I'm not surprised that he was moved into a front office role immediately. I mean, he's, the quintessential professional. He's one of those guys you want around your team, and he's one of those guys you definitely want for the, the younger players coming up and to help mature and to really become professional hockey players. So I think his special assignment under Kyle Dubas will be really big into helping all those young players transition into professionals.
He really reminds me of when the Sedins are now in the front office in Vancouver, and that was why they were brought in as advisors. They are still advisors right now too, working underneath the general manager, working, having their hands in everything, scouting, pro scouting, amateur scouting, in their ears, talking, what guys can we get to help the team. They're there for Elias Pettersson to come and talk to them if he needs help. And that's the same thing with Spezza. All these guys know him. If they need some advice, or they need, just a talk to a guy that has a ton of experience and a great personality in the dressing room, great leader. This is a guy that can go and, go and talk to him, right? He'll be around. He'll be sitting in the stands, watching practice, watching, scouting. Same type of, it seems like it's the same type of role as the Sedins have in Vancouver.
Yeah, I believe it is. Yes, but yeah. I mean, it seems like more and more players are doing that these days. Nick Lidstrom's kind of in the same role right now in Detroit, working with a lot of the suites that they have coming through there. A lot of more teams are doing that, which I think is great, because a lot of kids don't realize, how hard it is to come in at 18, 19, 20 years old and be able to fit in not only on an NHL club, but just to have that as your full-time job in your whole life, and to how to adapt. I mean, in the juniors, everything's kind of laid out for you. You go to school, you go to practice, you're living with other people's families usually, and they're looking out for you. In NHL, it's not the same. You're all of a sudden thrust into this real life world with a lot of money often. And it can be tough. So to have those guys to be that, sounding board and that mentorship, I think is huge for NHL teams these days.
Well, especially with all the experience they've got, they've been through everything, especially guys like Spezza. He's 38, I believe. Yeah. 38 years old. He's been through rebuilds. He's been through, coming through to a Stanley Cup contender like the Maple Leafs. He was in a Stanley Cup
final. With Ottawa against
Pittsburgh, I think, or Detroit. One of them.
No, it would have been someone out west at the time. I can't remember.
Would have been Detroit. Not Detroit. Was it Detroit when they were in the West?
It might have been.
Yeah.
No, because Detroit never played Ottawa in the finals, but it was something like that. It was some team. Yeah. Oh my gosh. People roast us in the comments.
Right. Yeah. It was not planned.
I did not look that deep at Spezza's stats, apparently.
We don't have a producer in our ears, so
yeah. Oh yeah, please let us know in the comments, because as soon as I get off, I'm going to be looking this up and mad at myself for not knowing.
Spezza played in the Stanley Cup final. But he
was Anaheim. Was it Anaheim? I'm going to go Anaheim. That's going to be my guess, and then we'll move on.
I'd say it's Anaheim too. That does ring a bell. I think
That just came to me out of nowhere.
I think it was Anaheim too. So we'll find out.
Right, call off the comments.
All right. But and in any case, he has a lot of experience. He's got tons of things you can ask him, and he'll probably have an answer. So great sounding board for anyone that needs to talk to him on the team. So it's great to see him transition so quickly into a front office role. Sometimes guys take a year off. I mean, the Sedins did, Trevor Linden did, guys like that. Then they come in and think about doing that. So, he seemed like he was having to jump right in. He probably had those beforehand.
I was going to say he's probably having those talks, with the management ahead of time, and I'm sure they told him, hey, whatever you decide, you're part of this organization one way or another.
Yeah, that's right. So fun to see what he can do in the front office. If he can win a cup as an executive rather than a player, which is still a cup. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Before we get to our articles of the day, this is a quick fire. I know I gave my thoughts on the podcast on Thursday. So I want to know what your thoughts, Kyle, were on this. Blake Coleman's kicking motion, a kicking motion or not? What do you think on that?
I mean, I've had so many comments and discussions over the weekend. And so my biggest takeaway is when he entered the crease, Coleman was engaged in a stopping motion with both legs under his shoulders. When he made contact with the puck, his left leg, which was his trailing leg, had swung in front of his right leg and ended with his hips turned and his left leg in front of the right leg in a non-stopping position with the intention to make contact with the puck. Now, was it intention to kick? No, he wanted to direct it in. But the fact that he swung his leg up to make that connection, to make that contact, I think that gives enough of a leeway for the refs to call that a distinct kicking motion. My overall takeaway was it was called a goal on the ice. I don't know if there was enough evidence to overturn the call on the ice. And same with had it been called the other way, if they had immediately called it off and said no goal, kicking motion, let's go review it. And then they determined there wasn't enough kicking motion there, which I don't think they would have. I think they should have gone with whatever call was on the ice. So in that sense, I think the refs might have got it wrong. But in terms of did he move his hips and legs in a kicking motion to make contact with the puck? Yes, he did.
Yeah. Well, my biggest thing was that too, is the fact that they called it a goal. And, I don't think there was enough evidence to overturn it. So we'll end it there. That's going to be something I think Flames fans are going to be talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
The offseason.
Absolutely. We won't hear the end of that until they make it to another Stanley Cup final. So,
So I was saying on the podcast too, the Flames have gotten screwed on calls like that, not like that, but and when last time they were in the Stanley Cup final against the Lightning, they technically should have won the cup because there was a goal that they look back on video that was clearly in the net, and that would have won the series for him. So I'm sure I don't have to remind Flames fans of that one.
No, that's a little more sorry that I ripped off
a scab on some people listening here, but all right, that's. I just wanted to see your thoughts on what that kicking motion was, but
I think they definitely had a case to call it a kicking motion, but I think you're right. I don't think there was enough there to overturn the call on the ice, but again, they didn't want to have the game end on that call either, right? So it's a very tough position, and you and I, we've had Tim Peel on the show in the past. We talked to him on Twitter quite a bit. I think it's a judgment call. It's one of those, you're trying not to be the cause of a win or loss in a series or in a game. And in that moment, they thought there was enough there to describe a kicking motion. So that was the call they went with.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all judgment calls, and then the, video review saw the same. So it's a lot of guys going into this decision. So it's not just one guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to our final segment of the of the episode, which we usually do here, is our articles of the day. We feature articles on the Hockey Writers website. And Kyle, start with you. What is your article of the day?
Yeah, my article today is by Marco Zlomyslik, and it is 4 Avalanche who will need to step up against the Oilers. And this is very appropriate because we're talking Avalanche Oilers storyline today. And so I, this goes along with our discussion. It goes along with the pregame, pre-series show that you just did. So after you go watch that, after you finish this show, go read this article by Marco. I'm not going to give it away because I think a lot of it is already what we talked about. And then he just goes into a lot more depth on a couple other players that really need to step up for the Avalanche in order for them to make the Stanley Cup final. So that's 4 Avalanche who will need to step up against the Oilers by Marco Zlomyslik. I knew I was going to butcher that one too. So sorry, Marco.
I've got an easier name for my one. That's a good, it's a good piece. I edited that one. A lot of these ones in the morning I edit. So it's easier for me to pick articles of the day. But yeah, that's a good one. Lots of good players there that need to step up in that series. So I'm going to go on the same vein and talk about the Rangers Hurricanes series, which ends tonight. And this is on a line that was recently put together called the Heartbeat Line. Very, the name is appropriate because these 3 guys have definitely
they did it game 6 for sure. Absolutely.
So new heartbeat, that's the Rangers' new heartbeat line could be key to knocking off Hurricanes. And this is by Tom Castro, writes for the New York Rangers. I believe he also writes some articles for the Islanders, I believe, mostly for the Rangers. But this is an article on the heartbeat line, which is Tyler Mott, Barclay Goodrow, and Ryan Reeves. Mott, of course, I've talked about. We know how much heart he's got. Barclay Goodrow, big part of the Tampa Bay Lightning teams, just returned from injury since playing, I believe, was just game 1 of the Penguins series. So he just returned. Ryan Reeves, who we all know is a big physical guy that, big for the Golden Knights. And, he has heart too. So very aptly named. Whoever named that line, great. So this basically outlines what they've contributed in that game that brought it to game 7. And, Mott scored in the game. And we all know all 3 of them can bring it. And they're going to be key in this game 7 because this is a line that'll stay together, I'm assuming. And we'll bring the energy, which is the energy they're going to need in a road game. So definitely check out this article. He outlines why they were effective and how they will be in this game coming up tonight. So check that article out. Rangers' new heartbeat line could be key to knocking off Hurricanes, and that's by Tom Castro. Yeah, that's a great article too. And I was literally reading it and about to pick it for my article of the day, and then Matt beat me to it by dropping it in the chat. But great article. And actually, I just remembered something, and I want to change my my game winner tonight for the Rangers to Goodrow because he is a game 7 producer. He is one of those big guys that really comes up, and I think you're absolutely right. That line could be the difference in tonight's game, and I could see him having another game 7 magic like he used to do for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I'm gonna pick Goodrow for my game ender tonight. There we go. 2 guys that have come up big in games, and Mott has been good in most games that I've watched in Vancouver here, and he's already been a fan favorite on the Rangers. So and you just talked about him being a glue guy, and you need those guys and to really drive not only your line but your team. So that's absolutely heartbeat for sure. Yeah, and everyone knows Tyler Mott's story with mental illness and how he's been an ambassador for that too. So great character guy in the dressing room, off the ice as well. So those 2 guys are going to be big in this game, and moving forward, if the Rangers move on, they're going to be huge going into the next series too. So look out for that. Read those articles, read all the other articles on the hockeywriters.com. Lots of great playoff coverage going, draft coverage, lots of stuff combine starting. Peter's doing a great job leading that team, and all the writers under him that have written prospect profiles coming. Check all that out because it's going to keep coming. The combine the scouting combine starts today. I believe. It does start today. Mark, who is our credentials manager here, he and Peter and Andrew, all three guys who are heavy in prospect coverage and stuff like that. They're going to be in Buffalo at the combine on Saturday. So there's going to be live coverage from it. So look forward to that. It's going to be fun. And with that, thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Hockey Writers Podcast. Listen to new episodes Monday to Friday on iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to check out our other great content at thehockeywriters.com. And also check us out next week for another YouTube edition. And from Matthew Zator, Kyle Knopp, this has been the Hockey Writers Podcast.